Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 10 of the Black Rose translations. This is the very last video in the series, and we're going to be focusing on the astrological chart of the Black Rose. I decided to omit the numerology. It's interesting, but it's not as interesting as the astrology, and I felt this really needed to be the one to complete the series. My introduction in 1989. The following astrological information was supplied by Ed Nowak of Arlington, Texas, based on the birth time and place of the Black Rose unicorn given to me by Thoth. Mr. Nowak has previously done 2 other charts for me using birth information from Thoth. Actually, it's 3 other charts. The birth and baptism charts of Jesus Christ and the natal chart of Merlin. I believe you will agree that Ed lends an especially sensitive insight to this very unique chart. Well, I haven't been in communication with Ed probably since 1990 or so, and I don't even know if he's still on the planet. It's been a while, and I'm surprised I'm still on the planet. But he's very good in what he does here. And so I think you will find it quite interesting. Before I begin, though, I want to say that not only is this chart about an angelic entity being in the Davic kingdom that is infused with the Christic energy to some degree, and that's unique enough, but it's also about the event itself, which is an astrological, which is a universal, interdimensional experience that is set from many different aspects or facets that culminated in the birth of this entity. So it's not just about the entity, but about all that encompasses it. And so now we begin. This is quoting Ed Nowak. The animal kingdom is ruled by a group soul, and therefore any chart interpretation must be considered from the viewpoint of purpose and intent of the group soul, and that we may not always know or discern, even through astrology, if indeed an interdimensional Christed unicorn can be considered a member of the animal kingdom. Well, I would say that indeed it can. It is definitely more than that. It's integrated with this high Christic universal consciousness experience, but it is integrated into the animal kingdom, into this Davic being. To continue, point 1, the planet Chiron makes an opposition to Uranus conjunct the midheaven, a very significant aspect. An opposition exists in the natal chart in order to bring the 2 planets into total consciousness. This opposition is no exception. It is the aspect for those who can bring about physical healing. Here it indicates the push to greater transformative levels. With Chiron in Cancer, the unicorn is tied to the past and at the same time is threatened by the Earth crisis. He represents in a special way true security for the Earth. Well, I want to look at that because I'm not quite sure I understand it. It says he's threatened, so how could he be threatened and offer security? But I believe what is meant here, I'm assuming, is that the threat is upon the Earth, and the entity is engaging that threat to bring forth a certain security for the Earth, a certain passage, a sacred passage. That's my Thothic view on what was said there. Okay, so to continue with Ed Nowak. Chiron initiated Jason to go on his long journey with his Argonauts to obtain the Golden Fleece, a journey which changed, awakened through Uranus, Jason. Is he not the symbol for the journey that all must take? The fleece was originally the golden ram, Aries' sun, and ascended in the chart. It was the fleece that saved Pyrrhixus, I hope I'm saying that right, from a trip to the underworld. Because Pyrrhixus' life was spared, he sacrificed the ram to Zeus. This could be the reason for its return at this time, to instill in us collectively a sense of the mystical, to save us from mankind's trip to the underworld. Do we have perchance the reincarnated entity of that long-distant memory of struggle and triumph returning once again? Returning is the perfect mystical merging of the sacrificing ram in Aries and the initiated goat in Capricorn, producing the unified, integrated unicorn? I would say yes, indeed. Point 2. Also, there is a trine from Chiron in Cancer to the north node in Pisces. Another significant aspect. The north node in any chart, even this one, is the symbol of the future, the path to growth. Here it represents a new experience yet untried. This indicates that the unicorn's emergence into the world, Cancer, is in response to the needs of humanity, Pisces. To me personally, this is very interesting because my sun is Pisces and my ascendant and moon are in Cancer. Not that I'm another unicorn, mind you, but I feel the connection here, you know, with my astrology, as many might with this particular setup here. Okay, point 3. There is also a trine from Mars in Gemini to the Earth in Libra. I added it on the chart, he says. Here we see the coming of the sign of the messenger, of divine truth, bringing revelations to a humanity lost, a mankind unrevealed, a world in pain, in need of hope. I do not know the true meaning of the black color unless it represents the collective pain and negativity, which will again turn white as mankind faces and overcomes its trials and once again takes hold of its divine birthright. Well, he's partly true about that, but basically the black represents the veiled, not ready to be expressed yet, in gestation still. And not only gestation, but because with the Black Isis and the Black Madonna and all of that, it is a form of gestation, but it's gestation for humanity, not gestation for the unicorn or the Madonna or the Isis. Okay, we continue now with Ed. Note, Chiron was the Greek priest king of the centaurs, the founder of the healing temple of the Asclepius, remember, I can't say his name, Asclepius, that's his name, the Greek physician. He taught Achilles, Orpheus, Jason, and Hercules. His grandparents are Uranus and the Earth, and his parents are Saturn and Venus. These 4 planets all holding significant positions in the chart, by the way. So what does this have to do with the chart? The lineage of mythology connects all, and the basic Chiron archetype energy is grasped by resonation with the sense of the exact moment and place on Earth where awareness exists. Chiron is symbolic of the wounded healer, and has not the unicorn been wounded by humanity's rejection? Mankind must at least heal the unicorn in consciousness before the unicorn can heal us. He knows when others are suffering, and now humanity suffers, ensuring his most timely return. Point 4. His ascendant is Aries. It is the force of the group soul. Thus he stands as a beacon of his own initiative. He generates activity, and his linkage is for transforming. Cosmically, Aries represents the initial stage in evolution, where the spirit descends into matter to bring into existence a universe. Now, apparently, Ed was partially quoting there from Lecture on the Zodiac by J.H. Vanstone. Now we continue with Ed. Point 5. He has a yod, the finger of God, in his chart. So did the chart Ed did on Jesus Christ. I'm putting that in there. So both the chart that he did with Thoth astrology for Jesus, which is very different from even, it's 15 years, I think, before the time that is given otherwise. But anyway, when he did the chart that Thoth, on the time, based on Thoth's time for the birth of Jesus, it had a finger of God in it. And so this unicorn, the Christed unicorn, also has the finger of God in it. It indicates that he has a destiny to fulfill involving Pluto, transformation, Neptune, mystical consciousness and devotion, Saturn, karma, duty, opportunity, and Mars as the finger pointing, indicating one pointed aspiration and revelation. Certainly traits expected of such a one. It is also interesting to note that the Earth is in Libra. The Earth is the planet of releasing sorrow and of purifying pain. Libra is the power to project spiritual will into physical expression. Thus, we see the manifesting of an evolutionary will creature who symbolizes the world discipline, the world disciple, in its struggle to free itself of the limiting shackles that bind the light and purge itself once and for all. Vulcan is in Aries, located between the Sun and Mercury in a chart, and the Moon is in Capricorn, which veils Vulcan esoterically. Vulcan relates to the will of God and, interestingly, governs the dark night of the soul, or group soul, if you will. The Moon is the prison of the soul, and here the unicorn becomes involved in matter, indicated by all the squares in the chart, to redeem a portion of the group soul. When this is done, the form nature will be rebuilt, thus becoming glorified through purification and released from the hold of matter. Now, in this context, I would see the group soul as being humanity. To continue, not all planets need to be interpreted individually, just as in a tarot reading, not every card is read in order to reveal the message. Only those which provide the clues and insights needed. Point 6. The group spirits of the animal kingdom transmit messages through the medium of sensitive centers which correlate to the 28 pairs of spinal nerves which are active in the animal. These nerves are especially attuned to the 28-day lunar month. These centers are wireless stations which the spirits evolving through that kingdom have unfolded. They have come into being through the incarnation of the various aspects of the interlaced triangles which symbolize the incarnated spirit. When one has watched those of the animal kingdom respond to suggestions transmitted to them by the group spirit, can one fully realize how highly sensitized the animals' bodies are becoming. Then one can be convinced that this lower creation are also evolving gods. Okay, now apparently he's quoting again from Astrology, Mundane and Spiritual by Parchment. It's difficult for me with this old print and everything to see exactly where he's talking himself and where he's quoting, but that ends with saying it's from Astrology, Mundane and Spiritual by Parchment. Point 6 that we're talking about there. Now, point 7, let's see if point 7 is, apparently point 7 is all Ed. According to esoteric astrology, Capricorn, which is at the midheaven, initiation and conclusion, and is the influx point of spiritual contact and light, is represented by the goat, which is closely related to the ram, the sun sign and ascendant in the chart, which hides in an esoteric blind the symbolism of the unicorn. In which the two horns and the single eye are blended and depicted by the long straight horn of the unicorn. Conclusion and comments by Ed. In an ancient astrological treatise which has never yet seen the light of day, but which will be someday discovered when the right time has arrived, the relation between the horned animals of the zodiac is thus described. Now, this comes out of Esoteric Astrology by Alice Bailey. So he's quoting her when he said this. And it's repeating here, continuing as a quote. The ram and the scapegoat and the sacred goat are the 3 in 1 and the 1 in 3. The ram becomes the second and the second is the third. Let me read that again. Let me start over. The ram, the scapegoat, and the sacred goat are the 3 in 1 and the 1 in 3. The ram becomes the second, and the second is the third. the ram that breeds and fertilizes all, the sacred goat that merges in the unicorn and lifts impaled upon his golden horn the vanquished form. In these the mystery lies hid. And that's the quote from Esoteric Astrology by Alice Bailey. And so Ed continues. The message of the event is clear. The emergence of such a noble creature into the world at this time deals with the emergence of the consciousness of the initiate, horn, and the defeat of the personality, black. And, I don't quite agree with him on the defeat of the personality. It could be represented on a more mundane level that way, so I'm not completely throwing it out of the bath water, but I feel that this is more the hidden aspect that the black represents. Okay, so anyway, leading to the triumph, to group and world consciousness, selflessness, and illumination over self-consciousness and selfishness. In the true rendition of mythology, the king of beasts is blinded by the piercing of his eye and heart by the long horn of the unicorn. The mystical and mythical aspects of a unicorn have been written about throughout history. If he is allowed to emerge into a world in a physical way so that all may truly see him, then we are surely on the verge of a great new age. We should view this event as a forerunner to the emergence of Christ into the world as he and his initiates, prepare to step forward and declare themselves in the very near future. We should expect to see more signs and wonders. We should expect no less. So be it. Now that concludes NOAA's part in all of this, and I'm just going to go to some comments on the natal chart interpretation by myself and Thoth. And so I say 1989, the first point, both Orpheus and Jason of the Argonauts play an important role in the present transition of the planet. This is a whole study in and to itself, and I won't enter that temple door in this treatise, but only say that the black rose as a mystery is strongly integrated with both the mysteries of Orpheus and Jason. Another Greek association of interesting note is that Alexander the Great's black horse, which carried him to victory, was named Bucephalus. I only recently was alerted to this fact and was stunned at the similarity between this name and the unicephalus, the wand cup of the unicorn initiation. Researching Alexander and his horse in the World Book, not Google, mind you, but the encyclopedia, I found the following information. He, Alexander, tamed the beautiful and spirited Bucephalus, a horse that no one else dared to touch or ride. Later, this famous steed carried him as far as India, where it died. Alexander then built the city Bucephala on the Hydaspes River in memory of his beloved horse. I want to pause there for a moment and add to that Alexander the Great has been greatly maligned in history. The famous statement that the victors write the history, of mankind. Only the victors survive, so they're the ones writing the history. Well, they certainly did that of Alexander. Now, there's no question that he, conquered a lot of nations, but a lot of the people in those nations were really wanting to be conquered. And those that weren't, he was still very much a benefactor to them and allowed them to practice their religions and helped them out and spared them their lives in many instances and did all kinds of incredible things. Alexander lived in a particular cultural period of time, and in that cultural period of time, it was acceptable for nations to conquer nations. What was not acceptable was, or looked at or frowned upon, was if they conquered them brutally, or if they conquered them with grace and a certain amount of beneficence. Now, war is still war, and I'm not making an excuse for war. I'm just saying that Thoth has showed me that we have to look at the time period in which people lived, in which we indeed lived in past incarnations, and not judge it from the present, but judge it from that time. And in that time, and there is some historical documentation to this fact, but Thoth also focuses on it. Alexander was quite a benefactor of the nations he conquered and the people, and very compassionate for a person of that time, a leader and conqueror toward the people that he conquered. And they really, for the most part, got a much better deal than they had under the rulers that were ruling them previously. And I will also follow up with that and say that I've probably after this point, I believe it would have been after this point, that Elvis Presley was Alexander the Great. And so I just, his presence energetically in the whole mysteries and his work and dedication in his life, another very maligned and misquoted, misunderstood entity by history, is Elvis Presley. He was a spiritual follower of Yogananda, and his work and his spirituality can really be defined in his true actions in life. And these are not reported, other than in some texts. They are from certain people that were around him, not his Memphis Mafia, but other persons. And as such, I can see how he is following the pattern of doing great works and then not being credited for them again, as Alexander was. My book that I wrote on him, that was originally called Magi from the Blue Star, and now is Blue Star Love, and is available for purchase, talks about this, and also goes into Alexander and a lot of things. So anyway, I wanted to mention that because it is referencing his horse here, and I believe that there is a corollary. There's a strong corollary. Okay, so to continue with NEAAF. No, not NEAAF, I'm sorry, to continue with me in 1989. And I say at that time, it is important to realize that while Orpheus, Jason, Achilles, and Hercules were embodied in mythos, they also were living masters at one time on the planet. They therefore resonate with both personal triumph of spirit over matter and the archetypal signature of their respective initiatic paths. Point 2. The color black, while largely associated with negative and evil, actually personifies the occult, a word which means hidden. Of course, evil often conceals itself, and this is true as well as the most sacred, the Holy of Holies, not yet entered into the scrutiny of the world, and therefore sustaining the ultimate secret, the mystery of the ineffable. This secret awaits revelation to be purified of ignorance, not the ignorance of the secret or its mystery, but of the sentient minds that know it not, when it is received into recognition by those in darkness, so it becomes transparent to the light. And we have 3.3 that I'm making here. While the black rose unicorn is of the horse type variety, the symbology of the deer or goat type still applies. The horn form unicorn represents the total transcendence of our present astrological imprint, using other star patternings which have yet to be seen in our heavens, but one day will be when the Earth quantum leaps into the new spatial matrix. Therefore, this black rose couldn't possibly have these future star signs in his natal chart, having been born in 1989. However, when he leaves this world, new signs will be in the heavens and wonders to behold, using Ed's phraseology. Thus, the nature emphasis of the sylph-like goat or deer unicorn is the symbol of the beginning of this cycle, while the horse unicorn is seen as the medium of transition. Although the black rose is physically embodied as the horse, he is also the beginning, the goat deer in his full spectrum. Looking back to John Davis's Bible quotations, we can see their interconnectedness with the quotation by Alice Bailey given by NEAAF on the ram, the scapegoat, and the sacred goat. I feel certain that the Black Rose Translations is only a beginning volume of forthcoming mystery work which will be presented through this channel coming from the heart of the rose. Wow. I'm reading this for the first time, mind you, since I wrote it. And there's so much to come here that I'm not sharing with you in this particular series, but is coming up in the White Rose series. And this really, little did I know it would have to wait so long, but it is here. It is here now. And I want to also mention the use of the word scapegoat. And we have Alexander the Great is being used as a scapegoat. Elvis is being used as a scapegoat. And in many ways, Jesus is being used as a scapegoat, among other personages and illumined ones that have followed that pattern. And so, my dears, this concludes, I believe, the Black Rose series here. Yes, indeed. So look forward to the White Rose. And I believe that I'm being guided actually to allow the White Rose series to be free viewing to everyone. I will give a very brief little intro about the Black Rose, just a very brief one, and then move into the White Rose, because I believe everyone that wishes to can access it, including all of you. So my love to you all, and thank you for listening to this rather long series compared to the ones I usually do.